What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another Let's Chat. My name is Chris Corvan, and today we're diving into the short story of Heaven That Never Was, a mythic dark fantasy short story exploring the downfall of a main character. It's a prequel to the screenplay Devil's Delight, and it opens the door to a much larger world of rebellion, identity, and consequence. This episode is sponsored by House of Void Press, supporting indie authors with publishing tools, editing, and the freedom to tell bold, uncompromising stories. And I'm joined by two of the authors, absolutely amazing, great people, my bestest friends, Lelina Smith and Bruce Smith. How are we doing today?
We're alive and kicking and moving forward with everything in life, so that's why we're here.
We're happy to be here.
Perfect. Okay, so let's just dive right into this book here. For someone kind of discovering Heaven That Never Was for the first time, how would you go about describing the story and the setting?
Oh, wow. The setting is pretty much the characterization of being in heaven, and you have your classification of angels who are overseeing the world, humans, not as a cartoon character or anything like that, but as being portrayed by humans. And it's really hard to grasp the words of the way they look, how an angel actually is supposed to look. It's really hard question, Chris. It really is to describe
well,
it.
I think one of the biggest ways that I would go about doing it is really focusing on the fact that this is a more fantasy-based telling of a world and a series of events that's happening in a completely fictional setting that is something unique and different from anything anyone has read before.
Yes. Basically, it's telling the story that nobody or anything has ever really looked upon or has even been told or spoken of, and the real reason and cause for the downfall of the Morningstar and what actually provoked him to do what he was doing now. What first provoked him to, a lot of people would say, betray their father or betray who they are and what they were created for. And it's kind of that supernatural fantasy sci-fi that brings all this into perspective, where telling a story and giving it a reason for the Morningstar's downfall that has never really been talked about. What was the actual reason? What was the cause of it all? So doing the prequel for Devil's Delight, I really needed something to go into that, and talking about the downfall and how other angels reacted to it, who went along with it. That's kind of where that led to for Devil's Delight, but Heaven That Never Was, the way it took place.
Perfect. And Lelina, let's talk about your introduction into this. How did you get put into the world of Heaven That Never Was, and how do you find your stay there?
Well, being married now to Bruce, this was something that he had been working on. He had been working on the whole series of screenplays, beginning with Devil's Delight and moving through, 4 different screenplays after that, before I even met him. But Heaven That Never Was meant to be an introduction into that world. And, the idea of the short story came about really as an introduction piece, as a prequel, to kind of introduce the main character, or one of the main characters, Morningstar, otherwise known as Lucifer, and to really talk about how he came to be the way that he is. It talks about the fall from grace. It talks about fallen angels. It talks about, themes of, morality and, desire and what's forbidden and what's allowed, and free will is a huge theme. So, these were all important things that Bruce wanted to convey throughout his whole series of screenplays. But Lucifer is kind of a misunderstood character, I think, or can be a misunderstood character throughout the series of screenplays. So this kind of is like his origin story almost, and kind of gives insight into how he came to be the way that he is and what motivates him as we go through the other screenplays in the series.
Definitely. That actually kind of moves well into the blurb and how it frames the tension around free will. Why do you think this was such an important thing and idea to explore in this short story?
Whenever I created everything and went through all of it, it was like, in that frame of mind, what was created automatically had the free will, but it's never been truly talked about, except for maybe somebody says an angel can do this or an angel can do that, but most at large, they're obedient and they follow the law and rule that was given to them, but still they had that free will if they wanted to. Did they have to pay a price if they took free will? Yes, maybe no, but it was still theirs to use, and that's something that the human race in some ways takes a great deal of advantage of, having the free will to do this, free will to walk and talk and chew bubblegum at the same time, and probably tripping over their own 2 feet at the same time as well. So free will came about as almost a training tool for angels that I'd seen. What do they have the free will to do? And just like every human, they have free will, but they choose not to use it, just to obey by what's given to them. So going through this process, that's where I thought it's going to be a whole different ball game and a whole different storyline and technique to bring in and see how well they will do outside of their realm, stepping outside the box. They're going to use their free will and see how far they can push it before it turns around and bites them.
Definitely. So kind of moving into the actual storycraft of this one, how did you end up approaching making the short story feel both beautiful but restrictive at the same time? You did an excellent job with the wording.
Restrictive. That having restrictions on my own self, my own ability to write, to keep every character in their place when you really just want to let them run rampant and wild. Keeping the technique and the story tight was probably one of the hardest aspects, especially when you limit yourself on what you want to see and what you don't want to see. What do you have?
Well, from my perspective, I was taking his original screenplay and basically transforming it into the short story. So I was expanding on the themes that he was putting forth in his screenplay. So I was kind of crafting a world around what the dialogue that he had basically put down. And, you know, he did put a lot of himself, he'll be the first to admit, into the character of the Morningstar or Lucifer. I think that, you know, that's one reason why the element of free will is such a big theme throughout his work. It's something he feels very strongly about personally, and so that transforms into that character. But as far as taking his screenplay and turning it into the short story itself, you know, it was a process of working together and collaborating, but also he gave me a lot of free will, if you will, myself, and leeway in interpreting his, you know, his world and his words, and crafting a story that was not meant to be a religious story, but more of a supernatural fantasy, a retelling of, you know, what he imagines this world would be.
Definitely. Any final touches there, Bruce?
Man, when it comes to the characters, really sit and put a lot of a light, you know, a dark style lightness to each of the characters that I imagine in my own thoughts. And it's like for each angel, seeing what they want from human beings that are interacting, and having them raise an eyebrow with a little bit of curiosity as to what if it was one of them and another human. What if it was a female angel seeing and imagining and exploring what she would want being done, or as the male, what he want to be, you know, the dominance force. These angels are seeing this all for the first time, and just where the Morningstar kind of, you know, relevates everything into saying, what if this was us? What if we were doing this? And yet realizing and understanding that they can do that. They were just pushing it off and obeying and doing as they were asked and created to do, and still learning and understanding right then and there that they have the same thing as humans have. So it's kind of another thought, you know, in my process and all that, what I see.
So actually, talking about process and all that going through there, was there a moment or scene in the story that just really clicked as you guys were writing it? And then on the flip side, was there a part that kind of gave you trouble or took longer than you expected? Without going into spoilers, of course.
The process really kind of clicked more and more as I got into a certain scene where the Morningstar realizes something can't happen, just not by his own armor of what he carries himself. Only what he has on himself can do the harm that he wants to himself, but nobody else, no other angel. So when I kind of got to that scene and it snapped in my head, I knew exactly where I was going to finish taking it, everything else. And how the Morningstar would show others in a frightening and horrible way, but in an exhilarating way, what they're going to have, but what they're going to face, their own consequences in so many ways. But the tangible of having what they want kind of drove a lot of thing, and the Morningstar saying, you see now you can have what you want, but yet you will follow me. So I gave it that reason. I knew that's how I was going to bring it, and bring that balance of power, yet that deal that was made.
Anything from you, Lel?
Just from my own perspective on, writing the short story, I think that, there's a battle scene in Heaven That Never Was that was, kind of a major turning point in the story. And then probably the ending was the most challenging part for me to write, honestly, because of all of the emotion that it carried and trying to convey the complexity of what's happening in that final scene. It does, without giving away too many spoilers, it does talk about, the fall from grace and everything that goes along with that, everything that you would imagine. But to actually, to write that was a lot more challenging than I initially envisioned. And I think that, we went back and forth for a while about how to best tweak that final scene just to make it just right. So for me, that was the most challenging scene, I think, for me to write personally, was that final scene.
That actually rolls really nicely into the next question of like, what is the collaboration actually like between the two of you? Like, we know the world is Bruce's, and then Lel, you're coming in there and you're, forming the words and doing all that stuff. Like, what is the overall development of a scene like? How much chatting back and forth did we do per page?
Well, I mean, he came up with the screenplay first. So he already had the screenplay completely fully written. And I was just basically writing the short story from that. And, I wrote basically the first draft straight through and then showed it to him. And I was like, okay, this is what I've got. What do you think? Is this true to your vision? What do you want to change? What have I left out? What would you add or take away? And we kind of did that back and forth throughout, creating the whole short story. It was very much, I took what he had originally come up with and just kind of ran with it. And he, like I said, he did give me a lot of leeway on dialogue, on the names of the angels, of, embellishing and elaborating on certain scenes that he, had the framework of in his screenplay, but weren't, just fully fleshed out. So that was kind of how we handled the collaborative part of it.
And you kind of already know sometimes, a lot of times, the book is always better than the movie. And there's a lot more that can be added in, things that may not have made it in. They're like, wow, I did not know that. So yeah, I gave her a lot of leeway to explore, add. You and I both know when it comes to a screenplay, you got to get it all in there, but you got to be limited. And being in the book, I really didn't hold her hands too much on anything. I let her go. We did keep everything to the story, and I just sat back and relaxed, and what she gave me, we read, and we went through, tweaked things here and there. So our creative process together and chatting back and forth, we did do a lot of that, but we got the end product and finished.
Well, I mean, with the screenplay too, the actors are the ones who are visually telling the story, and they've got a certain amount of leeway themselves in how they portray that story. Writing the short story from the screenplay, I'm the one that has to paint a picture with my words so that the reader can see the scene in their mind. They're not able to see it visually like you would on the screen or on the stage. They have to imagine it. So, that's the challenge for me, is to bring his words and make everybody else be able to see what he's seeing in his mind when he's writing those words.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that's always the tricky part, man.
that's the challenge. Yeah.
The difference in mediums is insane with what you have to put into it. Was there any aspect of this one that you found yourself really gravitating towards, either a character or a scene that you were like, I really want to explore this kind of on its own thing, maybe later on?
Wow. Getting the dark side, keeping it grounded and putting some truth to everything that actually goes on in the world. And it's getting to take your own dark thoughts and put it into a character that not necessarily that you've ever done. It's just letting that process go, but in some ways giving the Morningstar and some of the others that little bit of dark humor to go with their darkness, and yet maybe still tell a little bit of a light side, saying, well, you could have this, but we're going to give you this instead. So it's I try to, the Morningstar, granted, he's the main character throughout everything to a certain extent, and trying to tweak things that he does with his eyes, with his hands, with his body language, and that those simple phrases and his characterization of his conversation that he's having with somebody. I kind of enjoyed that a lot, being able to put that very, very dark, dry ugliness into him. That was fun.
Well, and it is kind of a social and political commentary too. It's thinly veiled, but you can interpret it any way you want. But I mean, I think that's definitely a theme that's also relevant throughout all of the screenplays as well. In addition to it being the quote unquote origin story for Morningstar / Lucifer, it does also talk about, other themes that are, very relevant to today's world. It's a supernatural fantasy, but it also tackles a lot of the issues that we're facing as a society today. So,
knowing all this and putting it into all my works, is a story ever truly have an ending to it? And this is just the beginning, that tip of the iceberg, and it on a story like this, I can't find an ending anywhere on it.
This is just a glimpse into the world that he's created with all of the other screenplays that he's written. I mean, it's a very expansive world, and it's a great story. And we're really excited for people to be able to see the whole thing someday.
And to have that takeaway from the story is not just one takeaway. They're going to be able to have a various of takeaways of, besides free will, what they have on life, what they have in life, what people can do in life, is thinking about everything that goes on throughout the screenplay and or the book. Not just letting your imagination run wild, but having that takeaway of what you have today compared to what people had 2,000 years ago. Where are you at now? how does this story actually fit into your life? Where does it fit into your life? And where you're going to go with your life.
And it's also about, I think, the fight between good and evil, and what really is good and evil. And again, the element of free will. We all have a choice as to how our actions are going to impact each other and ourselves and the world. So
sometimes your most evil is going to do good for you. God, I don't know how else to really put it. Sometimes just being on your best behavior, minding your own business, and sticking to your own little life and your own little world is going to get you through everything. And that is how it is. And some people look at just doing their most worst of every evil thought that they have is going to achieve them to where they want to be. But yet it's that consequence that they don't really realize that's going to come back to haunt them. They just do it. Hours, days, weeks, months, years later, it comes back to haunt them in some way, shape, or form. And that would be, that takeaway. Because as you watch The Fall and Fall, some of my characters are looking back up going, man, do I know what I'm doing? But I know where I'm going. I know what I want. But how's it going to come back to haunt me? So in that takeaway, in that perspective, it's how everybody who reads it, maybe one day watches it, is what's going to be their takeaway from it. Not just mine, not just yours or Lelena's. What are they going to want to take away from it?
Well, that one answered the next question, so that one worked. All right, as we kind of round off here, for somebody that hasn't read or hasn't actually dived into the world of Devil's Delight as of yet, what do you feel? Why do you feel this makes the most compelling starting point for anybody into this universe?
The Morningstar, actually, he has a plan. And a lot of that plan is going to entail with St. Peter. He is a biblical character, but his role in my screenplays and stuff is somewhat the same, but it's kind of changed. He has the book he's reading from, and he's allowing those to go in or send off for their glory or for their doom or whatever. He's not judging them. He's preparing them for their judgment. But where the Morningstar wants to, he wants that position, but it's for a different reason, to get what he wants. And that way he can send those human souls back to where he wants, because he's got more work for them to do. They just don't know it. And then, he's reading from his own Gigas Codex. He makes up whatever he wants, but not by what he sees. And having that position of taking over St. Peter's throne, if you would say, is going to allow him that position, but he's got to remove St. Peter from his role in order to take it over, and have his own army be there to protect him while the human souls are facing him instead. There's that work in progress of where it's going to go to with Devil's Delight. And in some turns and cases, it's going to entail human beings in this story as well, who are going to be a part of his plan. They just don't know it yet. And they're going to give him something they don't know that they're given. But you have other angels that are watching and trying to learn and understand what the Morningstar has planned, and he's keeping us very, very hush-hush and very, very quiet, and he's not letting the cat out of the bag on this one. He's going to push for what he wants, and he's learning by his own past mistakes. So when it comes to Devil's Delight, that's just the beginning point of it.
And Lel, as somebody that has come into this universe here, what do you feel is why does this short novel make such a good entry point into it?
Well, it does give us insight into Morningstar's motivations for what he does throughout the rest of the screenplays. It gives insight as to why he does want to take over Heaven's Gate and have this, this battle of wills, if you will, with Saint Peter. But as Bruce alluded to, there are many more characters that are going to be introduced throughout the course of the other screenplays. There's another very central character. Well, there are two other very central characters in particular that will be introduced, who are human, and that who aren't even talked about in Heaven That Never Was. But this just is just kind of giving the background, giving the motivation for, that really just sets the tone for the whole rest of the series.
Perfect. And just to wrap it all up there, where can people find each of you and support all of your work that's aside from just this short story?
You can find me on Instagram under Bruce Smith. I do some on Facebook under Bruce Smith. We gotta kind of keep this straight, because Bruce Smith is a very common name, but I am not a football player from the Buffalo Bills. So, TikTok, Threads, X, under Danny and Lelina Smith on X. LinkedIn, I am on LinkedIn under Bruce Smith, and Wix for author's bio.
Yeah, he's got his own website. I have my own website. We each have our own separate platforms. You can also find me on all the socials, because although we collaborated on this piece, he's a standalone screenwriter in his own right, and I'm a standalone author in my own right as well. So, we have our collaborative pieces, and then we have our individual pieces as well. But you can find both of us on all the social platforms, and we also have links to our websites on all of our profiles.
Yep.
So that's how you can get in touch with us.
Even through you.
And through House of Void, of course.
That's right. And of course, all of the links for absolutely everything is going to be down in the description below. Everything that you need to know, including where to pick up this book on the wide release on May 22nd, 2026. Go check out the House of Void Press website, where you can find all the details and the links to everywhere it's going to be sold. It's going to be so great. Make sure to grab a copy. Shout out all the authors. Go say hi to them on their socials. Everyone loves it. And a nice little hello. It's great. We love it. If you need anything else, make sure to hit me up. My name is Chris Corvan. You can find me everywhere at Chris of the Void. This has been another fantastic Let's Chat About Heaven That Never Was. Thank you all very much. Support indie creators. Keep making something that matters. Stay creative. Stay inspired. And until next time, see ya.